Disconcerting. But again, the problem here we have here is, again, she's going after psychological questions, which are very challenging to answer or manage or read about. And she's also talking about a huge topic here. David?
Maybe if she narrowed it down to a specific demographic, namely like elderly people.
Okay.
And instead of the why, she said, do the majority of elderly people from 55 to 80 in America find the wave of new technology with phones, upsetting? And then you got a little bit more, you talk to parents or grandparents.
Okay. Is the internet can they adapt to it successfully? Can older people adapt to the internet world, or are they kind of like, I don't know, something like that might begin to help with that? It's a huge topic, Akiko. You have a plan B? You have a second idea? What? Okay, is attending a private school versus attending a public school better? Notice how easily that rolls off the tongue, right? Certainly that's a more manageable topic, right? Okay. Could she find research? The benefits of a public education versus a private? Is it too one-sided? Are we going to? Is it sort of like, well, of course, a private education is going to be better? Not necessarily.
Would that include like homeschooling too? Or
okay, so she's going to have to narrow that down in terms of homeschooling or private schools. And are we talking middle school? Or are we talking elementary school? Right, Akiko? Right, but at least that's a topic, right, that we could begin to focus on, right? Is a private school, assuming one could afford it, worth the money? Right? Or is private education, is there something inherently better about private education? Again, you want to be wary of the comparison, Akiko. You want to be wary of the comparison, like vegetarianism and meat eating, as opposed to focusing in on one. Andrea, what are you working on?
I said that the increasing of materialism increase the question of society.
Does the increase of materialism lead to an increase depression in society? Is that right? Okay. What do you think about this topic? What do you think, Avery?
I think it's a good topic.
Good? Why is it good?
It's manageable. It's straight to the point. It's not really. I mean, there would be a lot of information on it if we were to look at that, but I think it would be manageable if somebody can narrow it down.
What kind of information would you need here to? What kind of research would you need?
Historical context, how it grown from, materialism has grown in our nation versus depression.
What does materialism mean?
Having a lot of things or caring about a lot of things.
Having a lot of things, okay.
Isn't it caring like about material objects?
Okay. This is definitely an interesting topic, right? This is like an interesting topic, the relationship between material goods and one's emotional state. Okay. What's a pitfall here? What are the problems potentially?
Materialism means different things to different people.
This is a huge concept, right? And of course, even depression is a huge concept, right? So she's got two really abstract things. There's nothing here that you could touch, right? That's probably another good test for you. The touch test, right? Like here, why do some people find change of things upsetting? There's nothing to touch there. There's nothing like hard, like tactile, like an object, concrete in this question, right? Here too, there's nothing here, right? And so this is worrisome, right? Abstract questions increase worries for your instructor. Okay? Does that make sense? So like, what could she do to like kind of rein this in if she wants to stick with a topic that's interesting? The other thing about this is, of course, is like, well, who would you ask this question? Who would you ask? Huh? Paris Hilton. Okay. Who could answer this? What kind of research would you need to do?
Psychologist.
Okay, maybe a psychologist. Maybe someone who happened upon a ton of money, or someone who lost a ton of money. Right?
Yeah, I was going to say you could cite the lottery winners.
Okay, lottery people, right? Those stories. Okay. There's got to be some kind of, I bet there's some actual studies that have been done, right? You could probably find a study, right? It's potentially big, right? So I might say, probably more cautiously than I would to one of your topics, say, well, I don't know about yours, Akiko, but, right, to see what's out there, right? So some of this, like, okay, we might say this is a possible one, right? Maybe, I give it a strong maybe. But then what would she want to do? She'd probably want to see what kind of research is out there, what kind of things she can find. And what happens often is that you'll find sometimes the research will help you frame the question. It just will, right? And help you confine it. What interests you about this, Andrea?
I just think it's interesting. Like I've like talked about it, like in like previous like classes.
Okay.
And like I've like looked it up like over the weekend. And
Okay.
there's like been studies.
There has been.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Again, this is going to be in that gray area, not in terms of originality and pressure to make interesting, but like somehow like it's a potentially really big topic, but if you can kind of find your way through, I think it's worth it. It's interesting though, certainly. People care. How are we doing here? How are you guys all feeling about your topics in light of this discussion? How many of you feel like you have at least like a topic that has a maybe attached to it? Like a pretty good maybe. No, Chelsea? Maybe. Wait, raise your hands again, I want to see. How many of you feel you got nothing? Absolutely, like you're pretty sure. Okay, Kiko? Okay. Although again, right, private school versus public school, right, there's probably something in there that's very tangible. What's your second one?
Why is it difficult to sleep when you're tired?
Why is it difficult to sleep when you're tired? Okay. Is there anything we can touch there?
Yeah.
Are we, really?
I mean, you could reword it. There's a lot of sleep studies and.
Okay, so do we want Akiko to spend the next like 3 weeks reading like sleep studies and like about scientific studies about like REM sleep and all this? Okay, so science and psychology are very interesting topics, but again, there's kind of like you gotta again kind of protect yourselves here, right? I think it's great if Akiko wants to go on and do her PhD in sleep studies, great. Right? But this isn't really the time to like dive into that material. I can't prohibit you from doing it. You're adults. You can choose what you want. But I'm trying to be helpful here in terms of that. And I worry that that's really a big topic. Let's spend like 5 minutes here, okay? Find a group of 3 that you're close to. And I want you to run your topics by the group, okay? And when we report back, I'm especially interested in, like some of you are going to be like, oh, that'll definitely work. The ones that are worrisome to you, or you're like, I don't know, I want to hear those back, okay? I'm going to give you like 5 minutes, or maybe even a little less. So just a group of 3, a group of 3, 3, 3. David, you want to work with these guys or something? Justin, you want to work with those 2 guys there?
Who's on my team?
possibly find so, it can be a bit abstract, but in concrete parts, you can eliminate some of the maybe some people aren't maybe going through those requirements after the models are
Anybody got anything?
Really?
So, the question I feel
Should America be selling weapons to foreign military powers? Should we? What? Oh, yeah, but really? Probably did. I actually did a bunch of research on it, and turns out, like it's been denied up to 1 time, and then in like 1978 they were like, yeah, let's fucking do it. Those are my pretty much head of the was fired, or was asked to resign, or whatever. Because he went in front of Congress and said, hey, look, you guys are doing double what is supported as the standard, and shit like that. And so it's actually, yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, like, I don't personally care, but a lot of people are really into it. Like, it's just weird because, like, all the scientists are like, yeah, it's like, it's big, however, like industrial waste products.
but I don't know if training arms, so I don't think we see
I haven't seen anything about it. There's the physical education that people want to do it so that, little kids don't get cavities and there's like literally no studies that
but like, if you look at like
it's like I didn't grow up with like I thought voters were and then you got designer babies. They did a site in Oregon or down south. They created embryonic genes from one man and 2 women so that it would prevent babies from inheriting it took
like when Egyptians made slaves build their pyramids.
so like the genes that were damaged from the first were replaced by the second one. Because like I always we have this discussion all the time because like all of our friends have these things like you guys need to make babies, you guys need to make too much things. We're like yourself because like it's really horrifying. Like this is like the way we have to do and it turns out to be like or like I guess an asshole or what if you
some of those pyramids because they have granite with our
well, no, because like, I don't know, but this thing is a thing into like, should we allow rich people to design things that want that they'll have long-term hair with the lives of their kids, or should they be like extra muscular so they can play sports, or they should be removing fat bodies and doing other shit bad, right? Yeah, so like, so I mean, like, is this the thing, like, should we allow designer babies? Like, this thing says, that's only important, like, what they're doing is we want you to prevent incurable diseases that are fuck kids up. But then there's one last step. Well, while we're in there, let's make them, more likely to be or the question would be, should we allow, should we really allow modify because I mean, it's like, there's nothing wrong with it. It pisses me off because I'm already bored, you know, like, I want to be right. I want to be simple. That's why I always personally that question. I mean, this stuff allows for all of that to happen. I mean, going into genetics, you know, like, especially embryonics and stuff like that, they're developing techniques that can prove whether or not, you know, your baby will live down to or, and if you can go in and fix that, then that's really the thing, I think. You know what I mean? But on the other hand, it's like, well, and then this one's just American selling weapons to foreign
Who
military.
heard a question that you're like, wow, that's a good one? No one? No one here? Okay, hang on, Skylar. No one here heard a question that you were like, wow, that's pretty good. Valeria?
I heard just 12-step program, should they be enforced in
People on probation and stuff like that.
Should a 12-step program, what's a 12-step program? Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Should it be enforced on someone who's on probation, right? So what's the issue there? What's the issue?
The context of why they're on probation, it's drug related.
Okay.
Narrow it down. If they're
Okay, but
arrested for
assuming it's drug or alcohol related, what's the problem with potentially with enforcing it?
It totally corrupts what Alcoholics Anonymous is supposed to be.
Alcoholics Anonymous is supposed to be this voluntary thing that you're supposed to go, you show up, I finally decided, you know, okay, I've got to get there, or life is gone, okay. And so it runs, and yet there are plenty of probations and that involve this requirement. Okay. Why is this a good topic? Why is this interesting?
It affects a lot of people.
Affects a lot of people. Tucker?
It's kind of controversial because, like, you know, a lot of people that maybe stop drinking, like, will be like, oh yeah, we should help them. And then a lot of people may be like, well, wait, they might be corrupting people coming in here trying to get help.
Yeah, right? It's something, right? It can be looked at from a lot of different perspectives, right? Kind of a fresh topic, even though Alcoholics Anonymous has been around for a long time. Okay, that does strike me as a pretty good one. I'm sure you can find plenty of information, right? You could certainly call people up. Who else heard one that you thought was pretty good, pretty sharp? Is it getting clear in terms of what works here and what's okay? Someone else heard one that was pretty good? No one else? David?
I have a question. It's pretty good, but could be modified with the whole open-ended, the philosophical part. Can I say that one?
Yep.
All right. Would a 2-year mandatory minimum military service to all United States citizens promote a stronger bond of unity and civic mindfulness?
Would a 2-year mandatory minimum of military service for all men and women in the United States? Would a 2-year mandatory minimum service for all U.S. citizens
Promote a stronger
bond,
unity or civic mindfulness?
sever more civic mindedness?
Oh, so like military compulsion versus volunteers? That's
Right. Yeah.
Pretty much nail it.
It's sort of like but not it's a confined amount of time and space in terms of like 2-year thing.
Well, every country pretty much does it except for ours.
Yeah, a lot of countries do it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where you do it when you're 18 years old, before you go to college, you go into the military for a few years. That's just what it is. Okay. What do you think of this question? What's your concern with it? Please, you guys, it's so distracting as it is with computers.
The tie part is the first part. The concern I have is to promote a stronger bond of unity, which is like that's hard to prove. So the civic mindfulness could be because like here it is a presidential election. I think less than half of the demographic from 30 years are going to vote. Okay. So that's almost statistically proven. So that would be one evidence of our civic mind. We don't care.
Right.
So if we were forced to take ownership with a responsible endeavor like military service, would that promote that aspect?
What do you think the answer to that question is? Does it not seem almost definitely the case that if everyone in the country had to do military service for 2 years, They would almost definitely have a broader group of participating citizens in civic discussions, right? Because you're being forced to do something by the government. Right? You can't opt out. You can't just be like, well, I don't care, right? At the very least, you might be interested in like figuring out who's going to be the next president so that you don't have to do this again, or that your kids don't, or whatever, right? There's going to be. So is there a way to frame that question? It's a really interesting thing, right? But without it being so biased, right? Like that, in a way, it's going to be like, yeah, well, probably we just look at other countries and we probably would see the same. Unless, of course, when you look at other countries where that happens and it isn't the case, but I'm doubtful of that. That people aren't more interested and more civically engaged. What do you think? Could you frame it in a different way? Does that make sense that potentially it's like a yes?
Yes, that doesn't.
Right? Would compulsory military service increase.
Okay, how about, is compulsory military service a good way to increase?
Great, right? That starts to change it, right? Is that a good way to do it, right? And then there's a debate about that, right? So maybe that starts to be a debate as opposed to like, would it? Yes, but is it a good way, right? It's an evaluative debate that different people could participate
In America, because we have so many people versus like Israel is a very small country.
Right. Is it a good way, right? You know, and a lot of people talk about national service. There should be a year of national service, right? That, you know, as a way of getting people more involved, whether it's in the military or building schools or something like that. David, you were going to say something over there?
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, you know, compulsory military service, like, is it good for, and you're saying civic mindedness? Like,
Being engaged
so
in your,
is the point to be like, or the question you could ask is like, is it a good thing to be nationalistic or something like that? You know, like you want to improve people's nationalistic pride, but is that really good in a world that we live in now, which is, you know, overtaken by globalization and people can come and go as they please? So
that
like,
becomes a lot bigger, of course, right? That becomes bigger potentially. And slightly focuses the question a different way. But does that make sense? Whose question was that? Was that yours?
mine.
That was your question. Okay. Does that make sense how we're talking about it? But you just answered your own question.
So is it, so should we toss it now?
No, I think that's a reasonable starting point, probably like Andreas. It's potentially big. You might have to focus it in a different way. You know, maybe there's not so much debate about compulsory military service, but there is a lot of research about this idea of doing national service of some sort, and would that be useful?
That doesn't sound very good.
Okay. Well, I think you probably have to look into it to see what you begin to find.
We could talk about bridging the gap between like the poor and the rich have to do it together. Then you can start making a middle ground almost, because everybody's gonna have to do it.
Tucker, what's your?
I was just waiting till this question was over. I just wanted to see if my question fits.
Okay, what's your question? And then I gotta show you some of this research.
Yeah. Are free viral downloads hurting modern musicians or helping them?
Okay. That's interesting. You like that? So is like the piracy like helping, right?
Is it helping them or is it hurting them? I wasn't sure if I should be more specific, like be like ads, like I could say, is it helping them grow a fan base? But I wasn't sure if leaving it closed-ended might.
Okay, right. So right now maybe he doesn't have to decide all that. He might have to at some point. What do you think of the question? Does it work? Fits the bill? Yeah, certainly there's a debate. Could ask a lot of different people about it, right? Philip would probably have some questions, feelings on this. I know from his previous essay. It's debatable. It's not getting into issues of legality and what should be legal, which is like going into psychology and science and stuff. You don't want to do that, you know, should it, right? But is it helping musicians or not? Is it a debatable issue? Right? On the one hand, it seems to be helping them. On the other hand, they seem to be getting rooked, right? Because everyone's just like taking their music. Okay, seems like a pretty good question to me. Who else? Anyone else want to throw one up here? David?
I like John's. He's got is the increased focus on individualistic morality detrimental to society?
Okay, is an increased sense of individualism bad for society? Is it?
He's got here, our nation is increasingly focused on religious, moral, and political freedom. Previous cultures have generally had a binding religious or moral focus. I want to know if this is a relatively new idea of individualistic morality is beneficial or detrimental to society as a whole.
So if I understand this correctly, you're debating whether like a free democratic society is better than a collective, communal, maybe socialist, maybe dictatorship. See what I'm saying? That's a huge topic.
It definitely needs to be
That's like
focused
enormous, right?
Yeah.
That's like, we're talking like Locke, Hobbes, like we're talking like philosophers forever debating like government, the role of government, the role of the individual, what we are in a state of nature versus what it means to be in a civilized society. Okay? That's the biggest topic we've had yet today. Okay? I like it too, but it's by far the biggest.
Well, like, it could be, like, way narrowed down, but it's rad. Like,
It's rad. Okay, so he likes the spirit of it, but it would need to be very, very narrow. Like, I don't even know.
Like the first thing that
What-
popped into my mind is like, I remember playing baseball as a kid, and we won a tournament, so we got trophies. But like now kids are all getting trophies just for playing.
Okay.
It's like,
Should kids get trophies to play baseball? Okay? To win a baseball league. Are giving trophies, you see? Trophies, right? Little league. That is something that you can do, okay? But don't go down that path, the way you're talking about. Okay? Otherwise, we will not see you ever. Ever. Unless you become really famous and they put a huge Wikipedia page, okay? Jackie?
To what extent does slang affecting reflect modern?
To what extent does slang reflect modern day society? Affect and reflect. Okay. It's an interesting topic. Interesting, slang and so forth. How does it affect you, people, right? How does it do things to you versus like how does it like reflect who we are, like different types of people use different types of slang. What does that say about us or a culture? Okay. What's the size? Small, medium, large, extra large? Okay, it's definitely on the large end of things. Affect and reflect. Okay, what's the other issue here about the question?
how do you figure that out?
Well, okay, so when you say how does it reflect, right? Well, you are saying it does, but how does it affect? Well, it's not really a debatable topic, right? If it says how does it reflect, well, to what extent does it reflect? A lot. You good? You don't think like our use of language really affects like, again, you're talking about like language theories of linguistics and language and the development of consciousness and like how we as people reflect who we are in terms of our language and cultural distinctions in different parts of the country. And you see what I'm saying? Like in New York City, there's slang somewhere. And is there a way to narrow it? What interests you about the topic?
Something on MTV.
What?
Was breaking. Actually, no, it's not. It's breaking Amish.
Is that like Breaking Bad, Breaking Amish?
No, it's in New York City. They just broke free from it, and then they were getting really huge time playing and even longer.
Okay. Okay, so is there a way to reframe this issue of slang and its impact and what it says about us to like make it a more manageable question? It's interesting. We don't think about language and slang and so forth. Okay, does it reflect students? Okay.
Some of texting.
Something about texting. Valeria?
Just like a way to narrow it down would be like the information about texting and this texting is like when we write people.
Okay. Yeah, does it affect it? Well, I would say definitely it does, right? So like that Nicholas Carr essay, yes it does. So what's the next question then?
Should we be worried?
Yeah, is that a problem, right? That language is, slang has become, you know, like so much part of the language. Of course,
Well, slang has always been a part of
Slang has always been a part of language, so it's a really big topic because that's how language actually changes. Something that was once slang becomes kind of the norm. And then we just use it and language evolves. So it's a really big topic. Totally interesting, but very big. You got plan B?
Well, I mean, I just, the impact of reality television, that's really cliche.
Impact of reality television? I don't know, I wonder about that one about language, if there's a way to make that work somehow.
You could
You
vary.
know, thinking very specifically, should, see, I think of it from parents' point of view, like, or a teacher's point of view. You know, should teachers be discouraged from using slang in classroom? Right? Should parents, you know, avoid using slang with their kids? You're gonna have to define what slang is, you know? Is it better to use proper, formal, you know, English in conversations with children, right, as they're learning the language, or is it important that they learn slang and regional dialects and stuff like that?
What if they never learned slang? Then they would know what was going on.
Well, that's what the issue was, right? With the Amish, breaking Amish, right? They didn't know, and so like it really became problematic because they were almost like speaking another language, right? Do you see how that's like taking an abstract idea and making it like in the real world?
Well, there's also one that was a topic that should ebonics be taught in public high schools?
Okay.
That was actually
Great.
a subject.
Do you see how like man, right? Should it be taught? Should slang be taught? Like that you guys just know what it is. You'd have to teach me. Okay. It used to be taught? Okay.
Nah.
Anyone else? Okay. Let's take a little break here while you're mulling this over. Not like leave. We're gonna just keep going. Do we need a 2-minute stretch?
Yes, find real topics.
Okay. What I want to do is I'll give you like 3 minutes, get a breath of fresh air, come back in. When we come back, I'm going to show you sort of basically the database. There's a lot to show you about database. I'm going to narrow it down to something very specific and focused. Show you basic ways of searching it. Again, this is not my perfect area of expertise. I'm not sure why, but I think I got enough to show you what you need to know and point you in other directions. I'm going to really talk to you a lot about the reference librarians over there. Have you ever seen reference librarians? Been there, seen them?
Yeah.
They sit at that central desk at the library, not the checkout desk. There's in the center on the main floor. My students who go see those reference librarians, who cost nothing, okay, to narrow topics, to find research, to help you ask your question, all of that, always have a great experience. They'll work with you for like 40 minutes sitting there helping you find a topic. They know my assignment. You can bring the assignment. They will help you. It's really useful. So I'm going to say that a lot today. Yes,